Hi folks, and welcome to the Meaningful Money Podcast, Season 12, Episode 7. Well, kind of anyway. Merry Christmas. This is the podcast dedicated to helping you put your finances in order. My name is Father Christmas, and I'm going to share with you everything you need to know and everything you need to do to secure your financial future. I'm here to help you make sense of money. It's not really Father Christmas, of course. I haven't even pushed the boat out and bought a hat to wear on the video. But great to have you with me once again. And I hope you had a great day yesterday. This is coming out on Boxing Day. And so I hope that you get to enjoy the next few days, hopefully of some R&R. But I know that many of you will be working as normal and all that stuff. But anyway, hope it's being a great Christmas season for you so far. So this shorter than usual season, Season 12, has been really about me chatting with some of my mates, which has been lovely, but specifically about how they have built successful businesses online. And it occurred to me while going through the season that some of you might enjoy hearing what my answers to those questions might have been. I've used sort of mostly the same questions throughout the season to each of the guests, although it has sort of developed a little bit throughout the season. But I have had time to think of what my answers might be. So that's all we're going to do today, just nice and relaxed. Ask myself some of the questions that I've been asking my guests on this season. Remember, of course, even in the Christmas season, this podcast is brought to you with the help of my friends at 7 Investment Management. They specialize in something called multi-asset investing, which I'm always talking about here, and I think that should form the core of most people's investment strategy. They've been helping me out on here for ages, and I'm really grateful to them for doing so, so please do check them out. They're at 7im.co.uk. That's the number 7im.co.uk. Right, so I'm just going to answer these questions fairly quickly. If you are a relatively new listener, it'll give you a little bit of background, really, and some of the thought process behind what I do here. Meaningful Money is a business as such, in that it does bring in an income. It's not yet sustainable in that it doesn't support me and my family. Anyway, more on that in a minute. Let's not jump ahead, Pete, honestly, right? So let's dive in and just ask myself some of the questions that I've been asking my guests. So this is where I hit a little button here and put in a sound effect, just to bring in the sort of the official start of the Q&A bit, which would have been good had it worked. Maybe I'll drop it in edit. No idea why that didn't work. So the first thing I always ask all my guests is, who are you? You know, what do you do and what's your backstory? And figured it might be a little bit helpful, certainly for those of you that haven't been around very long, just to get a little bit of the backstory behind me and Meaningful Money and what it's all about, really. The shortish version is that I am a university dropout, so I, for some crazy reason, which I won't go into, decided that I would do an electronics design degree. I love electronics. You should see the amount of kit I'm surrounded by in the minute. But I couldn't do the maths, and so I just about scraped my first year, failed my second year, and by that time I'd met Joanne and fallen in love and wanted to get married, and so I needed to get a job, really, and sort of do the right thing. So while I was a student and while doing A-levels and stuff, I'd been working at McDonald's as a part-time burger flipper, and I went to work for McDonald's full-time in their management program, which was fine, actually. Brilliant company to work for. Very, very long hours, right? There's a reason why McDonald's managers only ever sort of marry McDonald's managers, because they're the only people that they ever see. So that was fine, but I got home at 5 a.m. on a Monday morning, having worked sort of all afternoon Sunday and most of the night, to a little note on the bottom of the stairs from Jo. And she had been, in the house on her own that Sunday evening, and clearly had been comparing diaries and stuff like that. And she just said, "Pete," on this little note, 5 a.m, okay, "Pete, we have been to bed together 10 times in the last 48 days or whatever. Something's got to change, !" And so she was a pediatric intensive care nurse. She had a great degree. I was the dropout, so it was me that, something had to give there, really. So I had a friend who worked as an agent for the Co-op Insurance Society. So I had an area of South Wales, which was mine essentially, and I would go and collect life insurance and savings plan, premiums on the door, car and house insurance renewals, all that sort of stuff. And of course, you get put through your financial exams because the idea is that you sell stuff to the existing clients of the society. New savings plans, new life insurance, all that sort of stuff. You know, I'd be really good at that now because I love chatting to people now, but I was like 22 at the time or something. And in fact, it's 23 coming because 2018 was my 20th year in this industry. So it was 1998. Yeah, so 1998 was when I became a financial advisor first for the CIS. Didn't last there very long, about 14 months, something like that. And then went to work for the Royal & Sun Alliance, another big insurance company, and they had an estate agency division. So they had a bunch of estate agents in and around South Wales, and I was the mortgage and insurance advisor. Then I made the leap to the light side of financial services and became an IFA for a firm in Cardiff. And in 99, or at the very end of 99, the last week, my eldest daughter Ellie was born. So she's just turned 19 as you're listening to this. So she was born, and Joe really felt the call home quite strongly over the coming weeks and months. And by the time sort of back end of 2002 came around, we decided to move to Cornwall. Big step for me, but home for Joe, who was raised in Sennan, which is a mile from Land's End. So we moved to Cornwall. I got a job for Randall Thomas Solicitors in Helston, and they had a financial advice arm, and I was it. Right? So I learned a lot about estate planning and trusts and all that sort of stuff because I was working in a firm of lawyers. And then after about 2.5 years there, I got approached to come to Jackson's, and I started here on the 1st of January 2005, bought into the company on the 1st of January 2007, took out a massive mortgage to do so. Okay, so that's how I got to my current sort of role, if you like, where I'm managing director of Jackson's Wealth. I've been 20 years, shortly 21 years as a financial advisor. So now I'm managing director of Jackson's. We look after somewhere in the region of £175 million on behalf of our clients. We have 6 advisors, 9 staff. The company was founded originally in 1923. This side of it was kind of formed as an offshoot in 1974. There is still an insurance broker in Penzance, and that's my day job. But I scratched an itch in 2009, and I went live with Meaningful Money in 2010. Really, I just wanted to help people understand finance, how it works. Did 285 videos, then decided I would do a podcast instead, and that was in November 2012. Did 12 shows in 6 months, really kind of played with it, didn't take it very seriously at all. And then I thought, I need to really bite the bullet on this, and decided to go weekly in April 2013, and it's all gone a bit crazy since then. This is episode number 299, not including the 5-minute Fridays and stuff like that. So nearly 300 episodes of the podcast, 350 videos. There's a book came out in 2018. It's gone a bit nuts for a little bit of a side hobby thing. So that's where we are, and that's where I am today. I asked my guests in this season why they made the decision to start creating content. For me, there were 3 things. Long-time listeners will know this, but there were 3 things that kind of came together. I felt that I didn't just want this to be it. I didn't just want my day job of wealth management really to be my entire legacy. I didn't really just want to spend my time helping rich people get richer. I don't have any issue with that. It pays the bills very nicely and all that sort of stuff. But I wanted to help ordinary folks as well. The second thing that happened is a lot of people in sort of different scenarios in my life told me that I was good at explaining things. And that kind of started to sink in. I thought, well, okay, maybe I am good at explaining things and maybe I should do something with that. And then the third thing was that I read a book called Crush It by Gary Vaynerchuk. And Gary is a Russian immigrant to New York. His dad is the sort of classic American dream story. Got a job as basically a clerk in an off license, we would call it. They call it a liquor store. Ended up managing it and then part owning it and then being the owner. Gary came into the business and took it from a sort of $3 million to a $60 million a year business over the course of about 5 years after he joined the business. So classic American dream story, but Gary Vaynerchuk wrote that book because he made a name for himself online shooting videos, tasting wine. And the book Crush It has the premise really that as long as your content is good, as long as it's useful and helpful for people, folks will show up, consume it, and you will build a business or a brand off the back of it. And so I just thought I'd have a go, and that is really what got me started with the Meaningful Money project. I love technology, and I was really interested in the sort of mechanics of editing video and cameras and high definition and computers for editing, all that sort of stuff. That sort of thing that just massively floats my boat. Not sure what that says about me, really. So that's why I thought I would get going. I wanted to scratch that itch. Those were the sort of triggers that really got me to get started. I also asked my guests what the biggest challenges are. Certainly at first, what their biggest challenges were. For me, I was very concerned about looking like a prat, because it seems like a lot of people, you often see people now looking at cameras or doing selfies and stuff like that. But in 2009, end of 2009, early 2010, really, nobody was doing that. And so to sort of set up a camera and start talking to it was weird. And I was really concerned about that. So I did my first video at stupid o'clock in the morning, down on the prom in Penzance, where I thought nobody would be around, and they weren't. Pretty much, there's a few nutcases swimming off battery rocks in Penzance at freezing cold water. But the second video, I knew I wanted to do a second one, and I was in Newquay actually going to see a client. I thought, right, okay, I need to bite the bullet and get out and find somewhere to just shoot this short video, and I just didn't have the guts to do it. So I ended up shooting it in my car, and even then, people were looking at me like I was an idiot. So, that sort of fear of looking like an idiot was a big thing for me at first. The other challenge really was keeping going, because it was only ever really a hobby. It was only ever intended as a bit of fun to try and get some decent information out there and help people, but it wasn't like it was a sort of single-minded drive to build a business or anything like that. It was just for its own sake, really, and keeping going when nobody really was watching, very little engagement, hardly any comments. YouTube is a very deep pool. Even in 2010, it was hard to make any kind of splash there, and it's even more difficult now. It took me 18 months and something like 150 videos to basically have my first client get in touch. Mark and Chris, hello to you if you're there. Still clients now, a long way from Penzance. And that was at the first point I thought, wow, okay, this could be something much bigger than just a hobby. But prior to that, I had hardly any feedback. Lots of industry feedback. Lots of people in the financial services industry telling me how wonderful I was and how I was pushing the boundaries and really helping the consumer understand personal finance. And that's all great. And that, to be honest, kept me going at first. Now, really, I could care less about what the industry thinks, because it's you that matters, the listener. The ordinary person just trying to get better with their finances. Those are the people that I want to speak to and that I want to reach more of. So the industry kept me going with their encouragement in the early years, but after that, and after some clients started coming into Jackson's off the back of it, and more people started emailing me and leaving iTunes reviews and all that sort of stuff once the podcast began. The podcast has definitely been the sort of watershed moment, really. When I decided to go weekly in April 2013, that's when it really started getting interesting. Numbers raised very quickly. It was relatively early days for podcasting. There wasn't many around, so I had a sort of certain amount of first mover advantage. And so that was very cool. I've enjoyed the process. But those challenges, keeping going when hardly anybody was watching, or certainly nobody was engaging very much, and feeling like an idiot on video, those are my biggest challenges early on. Next, I asked my guests how long it took them to secure their first income. Well, I've already said that it took 18 months for the first client to come to Jackson's, which is totally separate from Meaningful Money. They're separate entities. At Jackson's, I'm one of 4 owners of the business, and Meaningful Money, it's mine. Okay, they're totally separate limited companies. So it took 18 months for the first client to come to Jackson's off the back of the work that I was doing on Meaningful Money. In March 2011, I'd done 100 videos, and I approached 7 Investment Management, who we've got a great relationship with here at Jackson's. They look after a lot of our clients' money. And so I approached my friends there, the Justin Urquhart-Stewart, who's one of the founders, guy with the red braces. You may see him on telly from time to time. I rang Justin, said, hey, I think it was Justin. It might even have been Tom Sheridan, the chief exec. I can't remember, but certainly it was one of the 2 founders. And asked them, said, look, this seems to be getting a bit of traction. Why not help me out? Came to a deal with them, and they started giving me a little bit of financial support to buy equipment. And over the years, I've plowed that back in to upgrade the equipment, and that's why we're now generally shooting in 4K and high definition audio and all that sort of stuff. So the first actual money that Meaningful Money itself made, though, was when I put together a course. All right, I put together a course called Learn How to Budget. And all of 9 people bought it, and that was in April 2015. All right, I'd never planned that Meaningful Money would be a revenue stream. But then I started to realize and listen to more people online and realize that it could be. And so I thought, right, I shall build a course and I will sell it. And I made a total of about 250 quid off the back of it, and I put a lot of work into putting the course together. It's actually a really good lesson there, because what I subsequently decided to do after that didn't go very well was to do my first audience poll. So I sent a questionnaire out to my email list at the time, announced it on the podcast at the time, and it turns out that actually only about 3% of my audience at that time would put themselves in the sort of getting started bracket of personal finance, where they needed help with budgeting. So, if I'd have done that poll beforehand, I never would have built a budgeting course, because it just wasn't really needed. So a year after an awful lot more work, I launched Learn How to Invest, my second course. I put Learn How to Budget. The first one, I just put it on udemy.com, left it there and see whether it would get any traction. It now earns me somewhere between $100 and $150 a month, which is not too shabby as a sideline. I do nothing with it except answer the odd question. But Learn How to Invest was much more successful. I used to deliver it live in a sort of series of 4 weekly live webinars. I rehashed it this year, 2018, into a sort of learn at your own pace type thing. And that has earned Meaningful Money more than £30,000 over the last 4 years, nearly 4 years, 3 years, something like that. So that's been much more successful. So, it is possible to earn an income doing this. Was never my intention and still really isn't my motivation. But if I can help secure my family's future while providing value for the listeners, then so much the better. I don't think anybody's going to complain too much about that. So my next question that I asked my guests was, how long did it take for the business to become sustainable? By which I mean, when did it get to the point when they were earning enough to live on? And as I say, that's never really been the intention for Meaningful Money, or at least it hasn't been yet. Who knows what the future might hold? It's always for me been a kind of side hustle, side hobby thing, really, without ever it being the intention that it would become a big deal. That is definitely changing, though, now. I think I'm working up to what an asset it is. And what a force for good it is. The feedback that I get from listeners about changes they've made in their lives as a result of listening to this stuff and consuming the courses where they've done so is obviously extremely rewarding for me personally to hear that stuff and to read it. We had a meetup in London in November, and something like 60 odd of you came out, and we just had a drink and chewed the fat, and you were so kind about what a difference it's made to your lives. And I kind of realized that this is a big deal, and I need to really try and push it as hard as I can, not just for the financial reasons for me and my family, but to help as many people as I can. So I got big plans for 2019 and beyond, so stay tuned in the next week or two to find out more about that. But if I was to do Meaningful Money full time, I could definitely make a living from it, and a good living. I think full time it could easily be a multiple six figure potentially business. But I just can't do that. I can't do Meaningful Money full time. I am absolutely committed to Jackson's Wealth. I'm in business with my 2 best friends in the world. So I can't just sort of stick 2 fingers up to them and say, thanks for the memories, chaps, I'm off to do my own thing. I am committed to Jackson's. Plus, my wealth, such as it is, a lot of it, a massive proportion of it, is tied up in Jackson's Wealth Management. So we could sell it, but we've been in business for, in this form for 45 years this coming year. And I'm hesitant to sell it to some big national consolidator who will basically treat my clients like numbers and, just lines on a page rather than people. We build multi-generational relationships here, so I don't want to walk away from that. In fact, I'd be an idiot to walk away from it. There's massive potential here still. Hiring younger folks to take it on so that I can increasingly step back, but I'm certainly not going to step away from Jackson's. So I can't do Meaningful Money full time, and right now I don't want to. But I'm putting people in place to enable me to do more on Meaningful Money and less on Jackson's over time, but that's a multi-year project. So a little bit more on that over the next couple of weeks. You'll know a bit more about what we're doing with Meaningful Money. I've got a team in place now. Actually, I'll tell you a bit more about them in a minute. So next question I asked was, what are the different sources of income? You remember Janet last week? About 1 million different sources of income. It was just amazing. So yes, I get sponsored from 7am. You hear me name check them at the beginning of each podcast. I'm not allowed to tell you how much that brings in. I've got a non-disclosure agreement on that. I won't retire on it, but they're generous and it helps me buy really good equipment. And I plow as much as I can of it back into the business. Like I say, Learn How to Budget, the course on udemy.com brings in somewhere between $100 and $150 a month. Learn How to Invest is currently bringing in about just over £2,000 a month on average. Goes in fits and starts though. I occasionally do some video production work for third parties as well, but that's pretty ad hoc and is reducing because it doesn't really float my boat. So there's a couple of different sources of income, but most of these from the sponsorship and from the courses. I'm just going to clear my throat a minute, and I'm going to turn the microphone down to do that. You don't want to hear that. Okay, I'm back. So, do you have a team? Was the question that I asked my guests as well, and I do now. After 8 years of literally doing everything myself, from recording to editing to creating graphics to building the website, I now have some help. So you met a lady called Gudrun Lorette in episode 3 of this season that we're just ending now. She is a writer. She's creating blog posts, ebooks, lots more besides out of the content that I've already created. So she's like a repurposing genius, really, taking the stuff I've already produced and putting it in different forms. So that's Gudrun. I have a chap called Kawayan, who is a marketing genius and very much a kindred spirit. The more I got to know him, we kind of consume the same people online. We both like American football. And we talk very similar language. The marketing stuff he's learnt is very similar to what I've learnt, but he's able to help me actually put it into practice rather than it just be theoretical. So he's helping me plan funnels, from pages on websites and what we want people to do off those to maybe go on to the courses or whatever. Instagram stuff, and which I don't really do anything on at the minute, but will be next year. He's, helping me with all that, and a major project which is going to be kicking off next year. More on that in due course, dear listener. And then Martin and Lindsay from Jammy Digital. They are building me a shiny new website as we speak. They're building it from scratch. I have run my own website on WordPress since day one and kept it up to date and put more and more plugins on it so that it'll help me do what I need it to do. Very clunky now, the website, and it's still hard, despite a pretty major rebuild a couple of years ago, still hard to find the information that you really need when you need it. So the new site will be a lot easier. There's going to be a learning center on it. So it'll be a really carefully refined search element, and all the content should be easily placed for you to find it. So looking forward to getting that done. That should be launched by the end of Q1 2019. All right, it'll make finding what you want to find on the website much easier. I can imagine in the coming year I'll be looking maybe for a video and audio editor, maybe, but more likely a VA to help me with the minutiae of running a website, uploading posts, prepping the podcast for release, all that sort of stuff. Stuff which is actually very repetitive, can be done very easily just by following a set of instructions. So if you're interested in doing that for me, let me know, right? So I do have a team, but it's a very recent development, certainly in the last year and really only in the last sort of 2 or 3 months. Gudrun's been working with me for a year now, Karianne and the guys at Jammy. That's one very, very, very recent development. And then the final question that I asked my guests really was, if you were starting from scratch now, if you had to start again with nothing, no audience, no website, no nothing, what would you do for the first 90 days? I would, without any doubt, I'd throw up a scratch website, just something that people could go to, and I would plan, produce, and market the hell out of a podcast. I still think this is the best medium for making a splash quickly. I know I had early adopter advantage with Meaningful Money. I was in the right place at roughly the right time, really, starting a podcast when there were relatively few podcasts around. Serial and Startup were big podcasts that just exploded at the time and really did wonders for the medium. But you know what? Consistency is everything. I didn't sort of stop. I kept going. This is episode 299. of the podcast. And so consistency is absolutely everything. But if I was starting from scratch, I would plan the first 100 episodes, and I'd be looking at how I could take the podcast content, repurpose it into videos, social shares, all that sort of stuff. And I would probably write a book, all right? But not in the first few months. I would want to do that in the first year to 18 months, perhaps. That's what I was doing, would be doing if I was starting from scratch. So it's fair to say it's been quite a journey, really, this past nearly 9 years. Most of that I've just got on with it on my own. So it's very cool now to have some like-minded folk around me helping me on this journey and build this project up. One really important thing to mention, there is now a Facebook group, which is going really well. It's exploding, actually. You can get together there with fellow fans of the show, folks looking to improve their finances going forward. We're having a lot of fun in there, actually. People asking some great questions, and there's more than 100 of us there already, and it's only really been up for less than 2 weeks. And I haven't made a big deal out of it, really. So if you're not in the Facebook group already, just go to meaningfulmoney.tv/community and come and join us. It's a lot of fun. Okay, so I hope, that was a bit of an insight into the Meaningful Money project and me and the motivations for doing it all. One review from The Grumpy Man. It's Christmas, you can't be grumpy. The Grumpy Man says, potentially life-changing. I came across this podcast about a year ago, thanks to the Property Podcast, for a change, he says. Yeah. So how many of you listening to this came from the Property Podcast? Since then, I've listened to over 200 episodes. Still have about a year's worth to go, but it's been worth every minute. What you need to know, Pete's simple, practical, self-deprecating style makes considering the portfolio makeup of your pension fun. Yeah, who'd have thought, right? There's things here for people who have never saved and don't know how to those considering an EIS, fairly advanced investment. What you need to do, follow Pete's advice. We were always pretty good at saving, but have now sorted out pensions to cheaper alternatives and have been able to forecast our future income and expenditure to understand what we need to save now to be able to retire comfortably. Come on. There's one single example of the power of this podcast. Discovering that our life insurance should be in a trust has potentially saved the kids over 50 grand in inheritance tax, should the worst happen. An unbelievably useful resource no matter what your life stage or current financial situation. Don't sound that grumpy man. I'm really glad it's been useful. 50 grand in inheritance tax saved, potentially. No worries. I like IPA. Great. If you want to leave me a review, meaningfulmoney.tv/iTunes is the place to go to do that. Now, next week, it's going to be a special episode because it's the first one of 2019. It'll be the 2nd of January. Going to be looking ahead, a bit more detail on what we're planning for 2019. Something a little bit different as well. And it also happens to be the 300th episode of this podcast, which is just unbelievable, really. How can that possibly have happened? So I'm just going to hit that button there, and that should begin the music, which I shall fade in gently. There you go. Remains for me to round off the year with a massive thank you for your support in 2019. Again, hope you're having a great Christmas. Thank you for joining me. You know what? Your emails, your reviews, Facebook messages, all that stuff absolutely mean the world to me. Please keep them coming. Thank you so much for your support. Hope that 2019 is filled with great stuff for you. But I'll say that again next week. All right. Great to have you with me. Cheers.